Hello everyone, I'm Sara Raney, and I am a victim. I lost my child, Kenley, with a drunk driver who decided that drinking and driving was going to be fun that night. Now today, I'm going to be discussing bail bonds. Now, a bail bond is a financial arrangement made by a bail bondsman or a bail agency on behalf of the defendant. When someone is arrested and taken into custody, they may be granted bail by the court. A sum of money, usually about 8 to 10%, that must be paid to secure their release until their court appearance. However, many people need to help to afford to pay the full bail up front. Now, this is where a bail bondsman comes in. Instead of paying the full bail amount, the defendant of their family or friends can pay a percentage of it, usually, like I said before, 10% in the United States. To a bail bondsman, the bail bondsman then guarantees the court that the defendant will appear for all scheduled court dates. Now, if the defendant fails to appear in court, notice that, appear in court, that's very important. The bail bondsman may hire the bounty hunter to locate and apprehend the defendant. Additionally, the defendant, whoever signed the bail bond arrangement or agreement, may be responsible for paying for the full bail amount to the bondsman. Now, what I found out is that the court, again, only cares about whether or not he shows up for his court dates. Now, during that period of time, the judge who gave him bail has given him many requirements that he is supposed to attend to. And this is what I'm going to be discussing now. But in summary, a bail bond is a financial instrument used to secure the release of a defendant from custody by paying a percentage of the bail amount through a bail bonds company. Okay? Now, in today's video, we're diving into the complex world of the legal conditions imposed on the offenders released on bond, with a particular focus on DUI cases, those with tragic outcomes involving fatalities. Now, the justice system employs various technologies and conditions to ensure the community's safety. Offender rehabilitation and legal compliance. Now, let's explore some of these measures. Now, I am not an attorney. I learned this through my experience and research. I also learned that it's just paper that this is written on. In my case, none of it was followed through. Now, the man who killed my son was released on bond twice. Each time he disappeared. The first time for 6 months and the second for 3 months. In this video, I will also discuss what happens when a probation officer is overwhelmed due to the high caseload and fails to supervise offenders adequately, which happened in my case. When an offender is released on bail, a judge can impose various conditions to ensure community safety and the defendant's compliance with the law. Now, here are some of them. But again, the guy that killed my child didn't do any of this because, according to the probation officer, she had too many cases. Now, one of them is a SCRAM device. Now, it's spelled SCRAM. Now, it's a secure, continuous remote alcohol monitor. It is essentially an ankle bracelet that detects alcohol consumption through sweat. According to my research, the new scam devices have GPS. And in my case, I understand he was ordered to get a scam device, but has yet to do so. But he did get a reward because he did not get it. Yes, I said a reward. Now, the ignition interlock devices, which is an IID, these are breathalyzers linked to a vehicle's ignition system, preventing it from starting if alcohol is above a set limit. It's detected in the driver's breath. Now, think about how many lives would be saved if this device were standard on every car. You would think his license would be taken away from him. You would think he wouldn't even be able to drive. Heck, you would think he was in jail. None of this happened. Now, here's the interesting part. The offender pays for these devices unless they cannot afford them. And then the taxpayers pick up the cost. Oh, yes. The criminal has all the rights. As I stated many times, the victims only get promises. And we are always wondering whether our child will get justice. Now, there are also breath tests. Now, these are given by the police, and they're used to measure the person's blood alcohol concentration, commonly called BAC. Now, normally it should be 0.08 or less. In most states, it's considered over the limit. Now, the man who murdered my child was 2.0, so he was way over the limit. But he didn't get arrested that night. He was free for 10 months. These tests are designed to provide immediate, on-the-spot evidence of impairment. He was too drunk to take the test. And believe me, that caused me a lot of problems. Yet he kept his driver's license. He wasn't arrested for 10 months. Thank God he didn't kill anybody else. Now there's urinalysis, a urine test. Now this is the most common method of detecting a wide range of substitutes or substances, including alcohol, but mostly for drugs. Blood tests. Now here is the one, okay, that kept the drunk out of jail for 10 months. There's a more invasive but also more accurate blood test that can measure the exact amount of alcohol or drugs in the offender's system at the time of the test, providing a clear picture of current levels of intoxication. Now, like I said before, he was too drunk to take the breathalyzer. So, they took him to the hospital. Now, normally a warrant is needed to get a blood work, except for really drastic cases. In this case, it was. So the police officer that was there went down and got a blood test. Now, in the future, throughout the last 4 years, this was something that was always coming up. The defense attorney wanted to throw this out because, guess what? He was too drunk to give permission. Give me a break. Now, when a person is suspected of driving under influence and involved in a crash, resulting in a fatality and too impaired to undergo a field sobriety test or a breathalyzer test at the scene, again, like I said, they are taken to the hospital. Now, there is a saliva test. These tests can detect the presence of alcohol and drugs in your saliva. You kind of spit into a tube, offering a non-invasive test to detect recent use. Now, saliva tests are quick and can be conducted anywhere, making them a convenient spot checks, unless they are too drunk to take the test. Sweat test. In some cases, a judge might order the use of a sweat patch. Now, that the defender must wear for extended periods. Now, that this patch detects the presence of drugs excreted through sweat, providing continuous monitoring over the time. This is usually used on conditions with bail bonds. The drug test choice can depend on the bond's specific conditions and the offense's nature. No contact orders is another something that the judge can order. In other words, to protect individuals and community. Now, offenders might also be required to attend counseling and rehabilitation programs. All I want to say about this, what about the victims? We get nothing. We get nothing. But they always get the doubt. I didn't even know that this man had not been arrested for 10 months. I thought he was arrested. I thought he was bonded. There was a lady by the name of Marcy in 1983 who I understand had her boyfriend or husband arrested for, I guess, abuse. She thought he was in jail. And she met him in a grocery store and he killed her. This brought along a state law called Marsy's Law, which I have already discussed in detail, which said that, hey, we are supposed to be notified if the guy who killed our loved one is roaming the streets, especially if we live in that area. Fortunately, I live in Nevada, and this happened in Texas. Now, let me go back over this a little bit. When the DUI case involves a fatality, the legal system intensifies its response. I don't know about that. Reflect the gravity of the crime. Like I said, it all goes down on paper, but if nobody does anything about it, it's really not effective. This includes setting higher bail bonds as a deterrent. Sometimes it works. Extended duration electronic monitoring and ID. Well, if they don't put it on, that's not going to make any difference. Enforcing minimum duration or minimum sentences upon conviction. That did work with me. Like I said, it's on paper, but if there's nobody there that checks on it, it's worthless. Now, I talk a lot about what happened to me, and I do want to state this. I do have proof and witnesses for everything I'm saying. I was in shock and trauma, and I expected the justice system to follow through procedures and get justice for my son. I never, ever, ever expected that the rules and regulations could simply be disregarded, and I, the victim, would be treated with so much disrespect. How does a criminal get all the rights because he can? If convicted, his defense attorney will find a loophole to get him out of prison. And I don't think that's too hard to do, excuse me. Now, each state has a victim's portal. Now, this is where I got most of my information. Criminal getting all their rights and victims was supposed to have been corrected with the federal 2004 Crime Victims' Rights Act, commonly called CVRA, and like I said before, Marsy's Act. Now, if you are confused, I know I am. The law could be clearer, especially for those of us who have no legal training or have never been in a situation that requires the knowledge of a bail bondsman or bond agents. We, the victims, have no bail system. We have a life system of a life sentence of grief, heartache, loneliness, and days filled with tears. We get nothing. No help in that. There are days we do not even want to live because we hurt so much. Some victims are hurting so much that they cannot even get involved and fight for justice. for their child. If you know someone like this, suggest that they get involved, because I believe that doing this YouTube series, lecturing and helping others, keeps me going. Yes, I have days where tears flow, and it's an effort to get dressed. Some days, like today, I am so angry that I could call that man's eyes out that killed my son. Then I think of my son. He would want me to do what I am doing. And above all, I know my son is with me every day. I do so because I want to make him proud. Your child also wants you to be happy. I take it one day at a time. And believe me, today has not been an easy one. In conclusion, let's come together to demand accountability and justice in our legal system. Let's help others with what we have learned and gone through. It's time to stand up for the rights of victims and ensure that those responsible for the hideous crimes are held accountable. Let's ensure that the DA's office handles cases respectfully and that all bond requirements are met, not just being there for hearings. Our loved ones are not case numbers, but beautiful children taken too soon. And the criminal who took our children needs to be punished and not given the chance to hurt someone else. Bond conditions on paper do no good unless they are enforced. In my case, the man who murdered my son did not respect the bond conditions. He thought they were a joke, as he knew how to get around them, and he had done so many times in the past because he had been in the system so many times. He knew about probation. He knew how to get away with it. He knew that the probation officer had a huge caseload, and he was just a number. Of course, some families would encourage these actions, so they still insist it was just an accident, not his fault. To me, it is murder. Killing someone with a knife, gun, fist, bat, and a car is murder. You have a choice not to drink and drive, as you have a choice not to carry another weapon. To me, it is premeditated and should be subject to the same punishments. As I said, I am not an attorney, but a grieving mother who lost her only child and was given a life sentence. Now, let's support initiatives to reform laws and provide stronger protection for victims and their families. Together, we can make a difference and strive towards a more equitable and compassionate society. I am Sara Raney, mother of Kenley, who lost his life to a drunk driver on January 25th, 2019, as he slept. This was his punishment for doing the right thing, pulling off the road when he became sleepy. He had no DUI arrests. He had no tickets. He had no accidents. He was a good kid, caring kid who would have done a lot for society. Please, keep fighting, keep learning. Thank you.